listening because it sends your energy forward. It sends it out there so that you have something that's drawing you in that direction instead of being stuck. Sometimes I get stuck. Not everybody gets stuck. Maybe they're just in the present moment. But anyway.
Yeah, very nice. Nice. Would anybody else like to share what came up for them or what they were surprised or what they discovered in the breakout room? Anything about your own process? Anybody else feel like sharing? Feels like, Jean, you've got something. You leaned
How
forward.
did you know? Yeah, I mean, I think it just made me realize, my daughters are grown and they live quite a ways away from me. And I do believe, I guess I'm using my power imagination to constantly be close to them because
Oh,
I really don't see them very often, but um, my thoughts are with them and they're with me and my thoughts.
mhm.
And it's my thoughts in my heart. And so we remain very close, even though we don't see each other very often. And I didn't realize that that was probably the power of imagination until I kind of thought about it. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's actually quite cool. I mean, that's what keeps us connected sometimes.
Oh, how lovely. Nice discovery. Good.
Yeah.
One more discovery. Did anybody else discover something want to share? Anybody else? Who's got a discovery? If nobody has one, we're going to just keep going. All righty then. We're going to keep going. Well, thank you for participating in that. Joe, you're shaking your head no. What does that mean?
Yeah, Reverend Carolyn, I didn't want to bring it up now. This isn't really, we can bring it up at maybe like one
All
of
right,
our,
let's do just that. We'll bring it up later. Okay? Let's do just that. If that's your instinct, I'm going to go with that. Okay. All right. So let us now move into the reading of the absolute word, which our dear Russell is bringing in for us. Russell, thank you so much, and let's give Russell our love and our light. Oh, my dear, you're on mute.
Good morning, Unity. The absolute word for Sunday, March 20th is positivity. I plant positivity, thoughts, and feelings. I harvest joy. Plants grow best in good soil. Weeds need to be pulled and the soil prepared so the seeds have the optimal conditions in which to grow. The seeds need to be watered and nurtured. Today, I tend the garden of my consciousness. I pull the weeds of worrisome and unforgiving thoughts and feelings by withdrawing any power of importance I may have given them. I create a fertile environment through regular prayer and meditation. I tap into the place of peace, stillness, and infinite possibilities. Using my thoughts and feelings, I decree and put a demand on the divine ideas of wholeness, abundance, generosity, and joy for myself and others. Like bright, beautiful, flowering plants, these thoughts and feelings grow and bloom in my consciousness according to the law of mind action. I plant positive thoughts and feelings, and I harvest joy. And so it is.
I plant positive thoughts and feelings and I harvest joy. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much, Russell, for reading that so beautifully.
Thank
Let's
you.
take that forward with our congregational hymn, Only Believe, and let's plant beautiful, beautiful thoughts and feelings. Let's harvest some joy together. believe all things are possible. Only believe. Ah, thank you for singing with me. And thank you. Oh, and Kathy oh, there's Weechi. There you are. Weechi, are you ready to read us the readings for today? It looks like you are. Let's give Reverend Weechi our love and our light as she brings forward the readings for today's service.
Spring blessings. I apologize. I had some connectivity issues. Happy spring, everyone. Our first reading is from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11 and 12. For I surely know the plans that I have devised for you, said the Lord, plans for peace and not for evil, to give you a future and hope. Our second reading is from the song Imagine by John Lennon. And I'm going to fight back. I'm going to hold back. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to cry. I'm just going to read it. I love this song. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. I imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Blessings.
Oh, Reverend Weechi, thank you. Didn't she read that just beautifully? How beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. You know, everybody, I want to share that as I was getting ready to write this lesson, a text from my youngest brother came across my phone and it grabbed my attention. And my youngest brother wrote to me, and I'm quoting, sitting in a diner in New Hampshire before skiing in the rain. Just ordered at the counter. The lady at the counter asked, have you been here before? No, I said. She replied, I didn't think so. You don't look familiar. I replied, I am the definition of unfamiliar. I had a laugh. My brother is indeed the very definition of unfamiliar. He is delightfully unpredictable and possesses an amazingly unique perspective on just about everything. He's always been able to think outside of just about any box that life has thrown at him. Most people put their skis away if it's raining, but not my brother. His incredible, fertile imagination allowed him to take that rain and ski with it. And that's exactly what he did. You know, he managed to do 26 runs down that mountain. You see, as we wake up day after day to more horrors of war and wonder how this will end or how peace is even possible, I'm thinking about the invitation to wonder something else. And this invitation is the invitation to wonder if peace is the definition of the unfamiliar. Well, when we think of the word peace, what comes to mind? Perhaps we're thinking of peace as the absence of war, and we might think of peace as the opposite of conflict. Maybe when we imagine peace, we imagine a place or a state or a consciousness where every tear is wiped away, a place where there is no suffering, where it just ceases to exist. And I know for a lot of us here today, that peace has more to do with our internal stillness and silence than it has to do with the relative quiet of the outside world. Now, these are all valid interpretations of peace. These are familiar renditions of the meaning of peace. But there may be an experience of peace that we have yet to experience, yet to imagine, an unfamiliar peace, a peace that truly passes all of our understandings up to this point. There may be more. There may be so much more to the divine idea of peace than we have begun to imagine. It's important to remember that the Hebrew word for peace is shalom. Shalom. In Arabic, it's salam. In its original Hebrew and Arabic, shalom or salam doesn't mean it doesn't mean the absence of war and suffering. That's not what it means. That word, shalom, refers to an integrated state of wholeness and unity. It's a state of completion, a state of fulfillment. So we may have thought of peace as the absence of conflict or the release from suffering, but that's not what shalom means. Remember that shalom is used both as a greeting and a parting. It means hello and it means goodbye. Shalom is with us as we bleed to death, and it is with us as we are born into life. It accompanies every human being who has ever had to say goodbye to their homeland, and it greets every refugee as they cross a border into safety. Shalom is the entirety of our experience of being fully human and fully divine. And when we know shalom, we can experience the suffering of others as our own, and at the same time ease suffering by employing all that divine love that we are. Shalom, that's the ability to see no stranger, to embrace the entirety of the human condition, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the yet to be imagined evolution that we have yet to be. Shalom, peace that Jeremiah is foretelling as a part of God's plan. That's the same peace that our way shower brought with him when he walked through a locked door after his resurrection with his wounds showing, with his wounds still fresh, using his wounds to guide his disciples to see wholeness right in the midst of pain and sorrow. He did not deny those wounds. So important for us to remember, everybody. Shalom is not the denial of woundedness. Shalom includes woundedness, alchemizes it, transmutes it, so it becomes a peaceful opening. The wound is where the light enters, as the beautiful mystic Rumi will remind us. When we are shalom, we too can walk through the locked door of a limited mindset. Maybe it's our own. Maybe we help it to be somebody else's. We can walk through a locked door of a limited mindset and be wounded and be peace. I'm asking us, can we imagine this? Can we imagine a peace that includes everything? No exclusions. That includes war, that includes harmony, that includes suffering, that includes ease, no exceptions, no exclusions. This kind of peace could be really unfamiliar to us. But if we can imagine it, we can inhabit it. Maybe not all of us are up to skiing in the rain, but the times that we're living in right now might force us to do just that, to imagine something that we haven't yet imagined, because as we all know, this world, this little tiny orb, it's growing smaller every day. We don't have the luxury of pretending that things that happen in other places or on other sides of the planet have no effect on us. We don't have that luxury anymore. The bubble of apparent isolation, well, that's burst. Be honest with yourself. Doesn't that bombing in Ukraine feel as though it's happening in your backyard? Let's be honest. Doesn't that starving child in Yemen cry to us from our own arms? Isn't that young woman in Afghanistan yearning for an education? Isn't she our own daughter? Isn't that young African American who's shot dead because he's wearing a hoodie and he's in the wrong place? Isn't he our own son? There's no escaping our oneness. We can't be a little bit pregnant with the Christ that unites us. If we want to know unity, if we speak unity, if we say unity, we have to be unity. And part of being unity means we will, in our humanness, feel the wounded and fractious displacement which others feel, and in our divinity, see the location of peace everywhere. Being unity means we are one in the sorrow of knowing we are suffering together, and one in the joy of knowing we are peace. We just don't live in a world that is separated by long distance or language barriers anymore. That world is long gone. The internet has changed all of that. This is a new world, and as the peace we are, we may have to need a new, unfamiliar way to imagine peace in this new world. So I'm scrolling around through this famous internet that I've just talked about, and I saw an article in the New York Times, and it was entitled, "Imagining Peace in Ukraine." And it was a kind of speculation about how peace might be possible in what appears to be an impossible situation. And the writers were trying to provide ways that we could imagine peace in Ukraine by coming up with scenarios which could provide the right conditions for peace. And I'm reading it, and I was struck by how familiar all of these solutions were. One solution, you negotiate a deal between the two countries. One country gets this, the other country gets that. Another solution, Putin just wears himself out. Another solution, keep enforcing those sanctions. Another solution, supply more weapons to Ukraine. These are familiar solutions. We've tried these familiar solutions before, haven't we? Over and over and over. Isn't it time to imagine something new, something we've never done before, something that is perhaps unfamiliar? Reverend Weechie, you read those readings just beautifully. You really did. And I know that I could feel your heart, your heartfelt understanding that put those two readings together, that familiar text from Jeremiah with its reassurance that God's plan for us is peace and not evil, which gives us a future and a hope. Well, did you feel in her heart how she made that our plan if we're willing to imagine it with all the divinity we are? Thank you, Reverend Weechie. What is this power of imagination that I keep talking about, that we've been talking about? We all have it. It's one of our 12 powers. And Jean, you had a beautiful discovery that you really are using it for, in a positive way. It helps to just refer back to what Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck and Bill and Cher Holton, who are all our friends now, aren't they? It helps to refer back to what they wrote about this power in their book called Power Up Your Life, because they define imagination as the power to visualize, to envision, to conceptualize, and think outside the box. And then they remind us of what the neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Newberg has reported, that we're not tied to the principles that govern genetic evolution. We can reinvent ourselves because our brains have this amazing, mind-blowing quality called neuroplasticity. Imagination is one of the ways we use this neuroplasticity to move us out of old ways of thinking and into the unexplored dimension of a new thought. Albert Einstein used it all the time. He said imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. Notice that he said imagination embraces the entire world. No exclusions, no exceptions. Now, most of us are aware that this latest war in Ukraine started on February 24th of this year, but we may not be aware, maybe perhaps not all of us are aware that something else started 5 days later on March 1st. Because on March 1st, that was the day that Yoko Ono began staging a kind of international intervention by pausing the commercial advertisements on the world's most prominent digital screens to share a message of peace. Her mantra is a simple one. Every evening at 2022 military time, which is 8:22 in the evening, the words "Imagine Peace" are seen lighting up city streets all over the world. I'm going to share my screen with you because there may be some people that have not seen these signs, and I want you all to see it. Okay, hold on just a second so I can get that in the center. Okay, can everybody see? Everybody see that? Okay, that's happening in London. Imagine Peace, 8:22 in the evening. This one, Imagine Peace, this one's happening in Berlin, Germany. Isn't that neat? Let's look at this one. Imagine Peace, this one's happening in Milan, Italy. Imagine Peace in Melbourne, Australia. Imagine Peace. Does anybody know where that is? That's Times Square, right in the middle of all of that. Imagine Peace in West Hollywood, California. Imagine Peace in Seoul, South Korea. And Imagine Peace in Tokyo, Japan. Isn't that wonderful? Yes. And so, do you see what Yoko Ono is doing? She is practicing the unfamiliar. She's literally interrupting the regularly scheduled commercial broadcast of the world we live in with an unfamiliar broadcast right in the middle of commerce, of trade, of greed, and of the familiar domineering architecture of the corporate world, with all of its emphasis of winning at any cost, of spending at any cost, of grabbing at any cost, of using up resource at any cost, of competing at any cost. Right in the middle of all that dualistic energy, a new familiar message broadcasts its way across that familiar with the unexpected, unfamiliar brilliance. Imagine Peace. Because, imagine it we must, because the cost of not imagining it is really too high. It's a cost we cannot afford. I think a lot of you here have probably heard about imaginal cells, but for those of us who haven't, here's a quick explanation. And I thank science and spirituality expert Bill Lipton for this. So let's imagine for a moment that we, each and every one of you here, that you are a single cell among the millions of cells that make up a growing caterpillar. You are one of those cells. And everything in our caterpillarness has been going along in a very predictable, very familiar way. And then one day, the machine, the caterpillar machine that we are a part of, begins to shudder and to shake. And the caterpillar system begins to fail. And we're looking around, and cells all around us are beginning to commit suicide, and everything is darkness and impending doom. But within this death and destruction, there's a new breed of cells beginning to emerge. These are the imaginal cells. These are us. These imaginal cells form a cluster. The cluster becomes a community, and this community makes a plan to give us hope and a good future, a whole new plan to create something entirely new from the wreckage, a plan for peace, a plan of a world with no countries, no religions, no possessions, with nothing to kill or die for, a plan of a world that lives life today and in peace, a world of oneness, a plan of a world created by dreamers like Jesus, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, Dr. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela, a plan created by dreamers just like you, who dare to imagine a new, unfamiliar peace out of the rubble of decay. The unfamiliar emerges. It's a brand new shape. It's a thing that has wings to experience a new world far beyond what has ever been imagined before. And you know what's really cool, you guys? The caterpillar and the butterfly have the exact same DNA, the same DNA. They're the same organism, but they are receiving and responding to different signals. Now think on this, because our full humanity and our full divinity also has the same spiritual DNA that wraps us as one complete shalom, a greeting of peace that understands suffering and evolution at the same time. This is us. We see a decaying caterpillar world that we have brought into being. We did this, and we and billions of other imaginal cells, billions of other human beings are awakening to a new, unfamiliar possibility where we can ski in the rain. We can be grounded with the very real suffering of others and take flight with the loving peace we are. Is it hard to do? Is imagining peace a difficult thing? Maybe. But so is skiing in the rain, and yet it can be done. Are you willing to exercise your power of imagination right now? Will you meditate with me? So let's close our eyes. And let's allow our awareness to shift to the always infinite we always are. And as we do, let's know that Spirit is inviting us to imagine that there is no other place to go to. There is no heaven waiting for us. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. And now we are invited to imagine that we are in an underground bunker in Ukraine. And as we imagine this, we can hear bombs falling above us. The people around us are cold and frightened. There's an older couple sitting right next to us, and they are exhausted from crying. They're trying to sleep. It's a kind of hell, but it's not below us. It's right here. No hell below us. Our eyes are drawn to the sight of a young child who is absorbed in the task of making something out of a little scrap of torn paper. What is it? What is it? It's a boat. It's a boat with wings. Above us, only sky. And Spirit invites us to notice that this boat with wings is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. What a clever child. And Spirit invites us to know that if we soften our hearts sufficiently, we'll be able to move our awareness inside this most amazing boat with wings created by this most amazing child. What will we find inside? And so we move inside this boat, a boat that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And as we do, we see flowers. Flowers of all different shapes and colors. Flowers representing every man and woman and child in Ukraine, and every person in Russia, and every soul in Yemen, Syria, the Middle East, Afghanistan, Palestine, Pakistan, and every and any soul that has ever suffered the barbarous cruelty of war, of genocide, of racism or prejudice, of any soul anywhere on this entire planet, living or dead. They are all here in their flower form, and we are here in our flower form as well. Imagine all the people living for today. And from inside this boat, which is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, we can feel movement. This boat of many flowers, it's moving. It's bringing everybody home. It's bringing us all home. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. And Spirit asks us, what does it mean to feel peace as a movement that includes everyone and everything? Imagine all the people living life in peace. And now that you've felt this movement, now that we've felt it, where are we prepared to take it? Because they'll say we're dreamers, but we're not the only ones. Someday everyone will join us, and the world will be as one. It begins in the imagination. It moves through and as us. We make it happen. We can imagine it. We can be the peace the world longs to be. We can imagine. and we can be. Namaste. Bless you all, and welcome back. Before we consider how we will give back to this community, let's give back an intention. Let's give something to the world. Let's give a promise that we will imagine a peaceful world with everything we've got. And we will never allow ourselves to bow to the dictatorship of cynicism, for we worship a God of absolute freedom, the God that expresses as us. And now, as you take your time or your talent or your treasure or whatever that is, whatever you've got that is a blessing for this community, I invite you to hold it right up to your heart chakra and say along with me, divine love flowing as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And we have been in a state of prayer that releases the peace that we are and inhabits the earth. We have been in a state of prayer that goes forth and is fruitful and multiplies peace all over this dear planet. And so we just say yes to that state of prayer that we have been in. And we enlarge that prayer to include a prayer of prosperity, so that we see the loaves and fishes that are here multiplying and moving across the world so that nobody is hungry, nobody is without. We feel that beautiful power of imagination bringing loaves and fishes everywhere and throughout the entire universe. And we feel the power of imagination. We feel it as it reminds us, as it allows us to see that all of our prayers are always answered, because the divine that we are is praying. Well, if God is praying, God shall surely answer. This is something to be deeply grateful for. And so for all of this and more, and what we can't yet imagine, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen. And now it's time to sing our peace song. And so see what you can do to make yourself feel as though you are holding the hands of people around you. If you want to lift your hands, you can do that. If you want to lift your consciousness, whatever you do, let's feel each other as we sing our peace song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. And let's say our beautiful prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love. The power of God protects us. We are the power. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.